Yo, welcome to another weekly recap. This is Owen Furneaux, reporter with the Defiant. We got Jeremy Nation, also a reporter on the team, and we have Christian. I don't want to say your last name for the sake for fear of mispronouncing it, but maybe you can introduce yourself and we'll keep it rolling.
It's Montoya, like the Princess Bride, actually. Yes. So
Okay.
I'm a product manager at MetaMask. I've been with MetaMask for a year and a half, and I'm the product manager for MetaMask Snaps, which we just launched our open beta last week.
Cool. Sweet. Well, and that's for those listening, that's primarily why we are here to discuss MetaMask Snaps, its open beta, and what that means for users, developers, and potentially crypto as a whole. So just jumping right in, if you would like to define MetaMask Snaps for us, what it means at a high level, and then we can get into, or maybe just what it is at a high level, and then what it means as, as we continue. So.
Yes. So MetaMask Snaps are applications that can modify your wallet experience and can add new features and functionality to MetaMask. So what I usually like to do is compare it to mods for Minecraft. If you've ever played with mods in Minecraft, they can modify what you can do in Minecraft or add new features. And snaps are very similar. And these snaps are built by third-party developers. So developers outside of MetaMask building totally new features. And now those features are available to MetaMask users who can install them into their MetaMask.
Cool. And I was looking on MetaMask website. It looks like you have people developing wallets for non-EVM chains, but could you give us some other examples of what people could, what are you excited about people building? Obviously, that's a huge world. I'm not super familiar with mods, so I don't have adequate context to like have a good imagination about what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, so another way to look at it is like add-ons for MetaMask, or extensions to an extension. Things that can run new features and new functionality in MetaMask. And so the different use cases, like you said, some of the snaps are wallets in and of themselves, and they add functionality for other blockchains. So there's some snaps that enable functionality for Bitcoin, Solana, Cosmos, Arweave, and so on. And then there are some snaps that provide new APIs for dApps to be able to do new things, such as share decentralized identity and verifiable credential information, or easier ways to sign in to dApps. So there's one snap, it's an XMTP snap that makes it easier for you to sign into dApps with XMTP. There are some snaps that do notifications. So there's a couple from Push and Wallet Chat that you can get notifications directly in the MetaMask interface and not have to share like your email address. And then there are snaps that do transaction insights and various security features. So you can actually get information about a transaction before you confirm it in MetaMask, and it can warn you if you're interacting with a dangerous contract address, or interacting with someone who's done scams in the past, or even simulate your transaction for you before you confirm it.
Gotcha. That's a lot of additional functionality.
It certainly is. And, how important is that when you're considering the fact that so many people have signed transactions that have led to their wallets being drained. So now there's a way for them to use MetaMask Snaps to kind of set up a barrier between them and these scammers and potentially stop the scammers from getting access to their assets.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on. So yeah, that was a lot of different there was a lot of different use cases that you mentioned, and that's obviously maybe the point, is that this is a pretty flexible tool. I guess maybe to get a better foundation without getting super in the weeds, like how did you what does this like from a developer standpoint? I'm not a dev, but like what tools does this give developers? Because that might help to understand like the potential like design space. Like what are we giving developers with snaps as like a kit? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the snaps themselves are JavaScript applications. And so if the developer is familiar with making like Node.js applications, working with NPM, these are very similar. We actually use the same standard for Node applications. And what you can do is essentially you can download MetaMask Flask, which is a canary build of MetaMask. It's the same as the extension, but it has the ability for you to test snaps locally. So you can download MetaMask Flask and you can start building snaps. And so we provide all of these tools such as templates and example projects and so forth, and even the tools that will bundle your snap for you and actually like prepare it for publishing. And so you can actually follow our tutorials and you can build snaps and you can see how they can generate custom pop-ups or custom responses or different things like that within the MetaMask Flask interface. And so what I would say is like, if you have any level of experience with JavaScript, you can follow the tutorials that we have in our documentation and you can actually build your first snap in about 5 minutes.
Okay. And then it's permissionless. So, I mean, is there like a snap? There's like a snap store, and like can anyone deploy to that, or is there going to be some kind of process by which they need to pass a certain bar of, I don't know, like usability, lack of bugginess, and so forth?
So within Flask, you can deploy a snap and just go ahead and install it. Flask is like a developer tool. So it's really just intended for developers. And from there, you can play around with all of the different snaps that people have deployed. In the extension, we're taking a very cautious approach. And that's why we're calling this first phase an open beta. We actually have an allow list process for developers who are ready to then make that snap available to the 30 million plus monthly active users of the extension. They will go through an external, like a third-party security audit, and the snap itself has to be source available, which means that you can actually go to the repository and read the source code behind the snap, and then they share that audit report with us, and we just review it and make sure that, like you said, that there's no like unexpected issues, it's not buggy or anything like that, and then we add it to this allow list. So in the snaps directory right now at snaps.metamask.io, there's 36 snaps that people can install, and all of those have gone through this process. And as we add more snaps from now until the end of the year to that directory, they will go through that same process until we've enabled our vision of a permissionless distribution system where there will be a vetting process, but it will be more community driven.
And do you have an idea of what that community-driven vetting process looks like? Is it going to be like a DAO-based initiative, a voting-based thing? Is it going to be something where like multiple auditing entities are providing these audits for the public, and then people are deciding what they want to implement on the stack? Or
yeah, so we're exploring a few different options. It's something that we're actively researching, so I don't want to get too specific, but some of the different things that we are exploring involve using smart contracts and on-chain attestations and ways for different actors in the system to be identified, like third-party auditors, respected members of the community, other entities that are also respected, and so forth. And so then ways for that sort of like trust score to be distributed and calculated and monitored over time, where, when you go to install a snap, instead of it just being a rigid allow list that we maintain, it may be this snap has been attested to by this many people. It has this sort of like trust score in our system. And so, this is something that we're currently actively building out. Like we're building out various like proof of concept approaches to this. And it's a very high priority for us to enable this, because I think that it's really one of the key things that enables us to go from like Snaps open beta to Snaps V1.
That is a hard problem, I gotta say, in terms of, I mean, I think people have been struggling with that throughout crypto, right? How do you get beyond, like a token based or like address based voting system, and how do you move into how do you account for people's, I don't know, skill and what have you, in terms of what they can sign off on? I mean, that expands into a whole nother conversation of governance, but I think, a lot of people are working on that, and it just seems like such a hard nut to crack. People were trying it with like Quora, and like, being an expert on Quora, giving you more weight, I guess. But anyways,
it's something I could spend hours talking about.
Yeah.
To me, it's maybe one of the most interesting design spaces, to move away from just like a token issuance model. And how do you measure trustworthiness in a system based on actually, the behavior in the system and how people perform? It's something that, one of the founders of MetaMask, Dan Finley, you know, he built this delegatable framework where you can actually use delegations as a way to, you know, distribute trust through a system and say, I trust this person, and that those things can be chained together. You know, we've worked with Agoric, who built, you know, hardened JavaScript. That's one of the base foundations for the Snap system. They have a lot of research in this area, and we're talking to, you know, a lot of different players in this space who are, you know, doing really interesting research and also implementations around attestations and so forth. But yeah, I mean, you know, Zuko had a tweet a couple days ago about snaps, how it's really exciting. You know, one of the things that he said was like, you know, users now have access to this distributed, you know, computing system, this ability to install these, you know, applications that's totally different from what's been done before, you know, and that really speaks to like, you know, even the like titans of this type of like technology, you know, acknowledging that like, yeah, we are doing something that's a little bit different that hasn't quite been done before. And it's actually really exciting for me to be able to, you know, design something in this space.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember Juan Benet of Filecoin a long time ago. It was like in 2017, he was talking about that same thing of like rewarding open source contributors, slightly different problem, but still just like, how do you, it's a huge conversation about how do you assign weights to different levels of expertise and so forth. So anyways.
So I wonder like the risk factor with utilizing these snaps. I mean, I know that they're vetted. I know that you have people working on them and building them and then teams testing them, but still bugs often crop up that we weren't expecting. What is the, who is this for in terms of risk tolerance?
So I would say, and we've communicated this around our, you know, announcement with the open beta, that it is something that initially maybe more for like power users, people who are open to trying new things, people who maybe have a little bit of a technical understanding of crypto and applications and so forth. And so have an idea of like, okay, they can tell when something might not be working as expected. And like I said, we've done a lot of vetting internally with respect to these snaps that are part of the allow list. But it's true. I mean, it's always something to acknowledge. You know, even with dApps, you know, there are plenty of dApps today that, you know, may have issues, and, you know, users will go on Twitter or so forth and say, you know, there's a problem with this dApp right now, you know, and people will usually organize around that. My hope is that when a lot of people are using snaps, they can do the same, right? And sort of self-organize as a community. And like I said, to vet these things together. But yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, I even will tell people, you know, set up another browser profile with another instance of MetaMask and install things there, or try it with accounts that, you know, are more of like your hot wallet accounts and so forth. And partly that's just a way to, you know, get comfortable with something when you're trying it out for the first time. It isn't necessarily because it's dangerous to use. It's just a way to, you know, I always recommend that people be cautious about anything that they do that's totally new, especially with their wallet where they manage their funds. So I think that's just good practice in general.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And kind of bouncing all over the place here, but like, I guess so. I don't know. Are there things that you are particularly kind of excited about in terms of, how snaps will? I mean, just like how will it change crypto? I mean, you know, we've seen, you know, I see it looks like there's a wallet for Bitcoin, I think, in snaps. Like is this kind of edging? It seems like it's edging us closer to like a more frictionless experience where, you know, which again, people were talking about it like, you know, 5 years ago. It's like, you know, you won't even know what blockchain you're using. Like, how is it moving crypto forward?
Yeah, so there's two things I'll say to that. One is, yes, with respect to taking MetaMask beyond being specifically Ethereum based and all of the Ethereum based networks, and now making it possible for MetaMask to be agnostic about different types of networks with completely different technology stacks, right? To now be able to have a way for developers to build that connectivity into MetaMask, and for you to be able to go across these different blockchains in one wallet application is super exciting. There's obviously some things that we still need to do within the UX of MetaMask to make it truly seamless, and that is something that we are working on. But that was one of the things that we recognized was, look, there's all these MetaMask users who are then having to go and get other applications to be able to interact on these other blockchains. And if you were bridging from, say, Ethereum to Cosmos or Solana to Ethereum, it's pretty painful to be like, okay, now I have to manage like two different wallets, you know, for two different accounts and go across these different devices. and being able to reduce that friction is obviously very valuable for users. But the other thing is, I have this vision that the wallet is not just a way to connect to the blockchain or a way to manage my funds. The wallet is a companion application, right? And it's a companion application that can manage your digital identity, your authority, different kinds of things that are not just specific to like on-chain activity or assets. And so what I'm really excited about are snaps in other areas, not just for blockchain connectivity, but different things like decentralized identity, using ZK for privacy enabling, ways for you to selectively enable information or connect to different protocols that are maybe off-chain protocols or, not necessarily blockchain specific, and different ways to be able to integrate social features and communication features. And so I think when you look beyond just like the obvious, blockchain use cases that I know, maybe get the most hype in the news, when you look beyond that, you really see like, okay, this is, a portable computing platform where you can potentially have like your digital companion that enables you to manage a lot of other things that you want to do on the decentralized web.
Yeah.
One of the things Owen brought up, and sorry to jump in, I think this is important. He brought up like, reducing friction in terms of having multiple wallets, managing interoperability protocols, stuff like that. Does Snaps make it possible for a user to use only one seed phrase when operating across multiple blockchains?
So part of the design of the system right now is when you install like a Cosmos wallet and you generate those addresses, those are based deterministically on your seed phrase. So it is one seed phrase, and it's the same way that your Ethereum addresses in MetaMask are derived from that seed phrase. Your other addresses, if you install a Bitcoin snap, that address is deterministic. And part of the reason that we did that is you can then take that seed phrase to another instance of MetaMask, maybe on another device. And if you use that same seed phrase and then install those snaps, you will get those same accounts. And that's the way it's designed right now. We have ideas on how to make that more flexible in the future and eventually, be able to support other ways of managing accounts. But making it, deterministic. And part of the way we designed the system was the snaps can't see your seed phrase. They don't know your seed phrase, but they can derive the entropy that they need for whatever types of accounts that they're managing. Building it in that way was really important in order to make sure that the portability of your MetaMask seed phrase is still maintained.
Cool. So you do it like it's like some kind of hash function or something?
It's an API that it just gives you the entropy that you need to be able to manage those key pairs. And so, this is something, that's really interesting about the system is, when I install a Cosmos snap, it will have some Cosmos key pairs that it's managing for me. And that's what I was saying before about like, these are full-blown wallets in these snaps that are able to do that. And many of them are built by wallet teams who have built other wallets in the past. So they've brought their expertise into the snaps ecosystem to make these snaps for these blockchains.
Cool. And sorry, you might have said this. So it generates like, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, MetaMask knows I'm going to sound really stupid, but like MetaMask knows your private key in both the instance of the kind of original Ethereum and then for these snaps. Does it also quote unquote know? I don't even know if that's the right word, but does it, are we trusting MetaMask to keep your key secure? That feels a very dumb question, but
no, that's partly why it's so important that MetaMask is self-custodial, right? Like if you have an account on a centralized exchange, they have a private key for that account, right? They have control over those funds, and if something happens, you don't have access to that, right? With MetaMask, you have a seed phrase that's generated, and we tell you to write it down. Don't share it with anyone. We'll never ask you for it, right? Like don't ever send it to anyone on Discord or anything like that, right? And MetaMask being self-custodial means it's running on your device. It's not running on a server. We don't have access to any of that private key information. And so what it implements is a, BIP44, which just says, okay, you have the seed phrase, and then you have all of these key pairs that are derived from it. And that's how your Ethereum accounts are generated in MetaMask, right? You can generate a bunch of accounts. And then we just extended that to Snaps to then say, okay, Snaps can use an API to generate accounts for all these other blockchains like Solana and so forth. But we did that in such a way that those snaps don't actually get your seed phrase. Your seed phrase is still stored safely and securely within MetaMask.
Cool. And
And
go, Jeremy, my bad.
I was just saying ingenious, it's great. And then you get the functionality via JavaScript in terms of the interoperability. So,
Yeah,
there you
and
go.
I take no credit for this. The MetaMask engineers who devised all of this.
Humble and wise, you guys.
Yeah.
Christian Montoya.
Right on. So going back, I think some of the the non-financial identity stuff is super interesting. Like, so you kind of touched on that. So you're seeing MetaMask maybe more from this. I mean, I've talked to like the Disco team, and I really like that vision. I just think it's compelling of of these wallets and identities being not just about the financial assets you own. Like there are more pieces of data to associate with someone. So yeah, I don't know. Would you mind talking more about that? Like, what do you think? Like, what is the future of MetaMask? I mean, I have an idea of like, yeah, like sign in with MetaMask or something, and my parents never have to remember their password to their email, or whatever. I don't, as my brain fails or whatever. So yeah, I'd be
Yeah,
curious.
there's a few different things that are happening in the ecosystem now in this area, right? That are really exciting, right? One is like you mentioned, with sign in with Ethereum, it's now your wallet can be your entry point, right? Your identity, your authority manager that allows you to connect to these systems. And what's really cool about sign in with Ethereum is that it actually validates the website that you're signing into, right? So it adds this extra layer of security, right? It's not just like your typical username and password sign in. Like it's actually saying I consent to sign into this website, right, and share some information. And so some of the things that are happening right now, it's like people are seeing, okay, there was a reason why people wanted to have decentralized money. There was a reason why people wanted to have funds that are outside of like state control or middlemen, right? And so then people said, okay, well, what if we apply that concept to other areas? Can I have control over my data? Can I get the middlemen out of like the ad sellers and all of these like big tech platforms? Can I get them out of like what I do with my data and how I interact with various platforms and other people on the decentralized web, right? Can I do that with my digital identity, right? And what information I share and so forth. And so it's really just that mindset and that promise that Bitcoin gave us, right, applied in these other areas to then say, okay, the wallet can do these things, right? When you look at like account abstraction, a big part of it is just I want to do some off-chain computation. I want to be able to validate something, right? And when you look at that and apply that to the wallet as this, digital companion that allows you to, perform all of these really interesting functions and is also something that you have full control over, and you apply that to these other things, you say, yeah, maybe AI does present some challenges. Maybe I need proof of humanity. Maybe I need a way to do that without having to go through middlemen or gatekeepers or anything like that. And maybe the ad platforms are too exploitative, right? Maybe what they're doing with my data is not something that I've consented to. Maybe I need some systems that can sidestep all of that. I like to say like sometimes you have to break down the gate and sometimes you just walk around it. And I think what we're seeing in the crypto space is people are finding some really interesting ways to just walk around the gate and enable some ways to make people's lives better through cryptography and through decentralized applications.
Well said. Yeah, it's good to remember. I mean, personally, and I think a lot of people are, so who are kind of in the space for not entirely financial reasons, it is nice to remember that there's more going on than farming, whatever, some month
tokens and so forth.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I had like one of my, right after I joined MetaMask, I joined MetaMask a year and a half ago, and like a month in, I went to a conference in Brazil, and it was like so eye-opening to me to talk to people in Brazil who were like, look, our banking system's really bad, and if I want to access, if I want to invest in something off, outside of Brazil, there's really no avenue for me to do that. Like I can't buy property in another country or anything like that, and like I can't really rely on my bank to protect my accounts, or the government system doesn't really, protect me in any way. And so for them, it's really more of a lifeline. And to think about like they have needs, right, that we can help solve, and so to turn off the speculation side of crypto and hanging out on Twitter and talking to people about like what to buy next, right? And to think about like what are some things that we can do to help people, going back to that like banking the unbanked, vision, which is like one of the things that first brought me to the space. Like that to me is really exciting. And like, if I don't get rich in the space, but I get to build some really cool products that help other people, like I'll be very happy.
Yeah.
Are the snaps poised as public goods? And is there anything developers need to do to familiarize themselves with integrating JavaScript with like the Ethereum stack in terms of like building these things for MetaMask? I know that making it JavaScript based gives a much wider accessibility to MetaMask to a lot of developers out there from across ecosystems, not just crypto. So I'm curious if there's anything they need to brush up on in terms of being able to integrate their development with the MetaMask stack to make a snap, and how easy is it? Is it built around that easy use, for developers?
Yeah, so there's two questions I'm going to answer in reverse, right? So one is that for certain use cases, it is relevant to the Ethereum stack. Like if you're building a transaction insight snap that decodes, a contract interaction and shows you information about that transaction, you will need to know something about like Solidity and the Ethereum stack and like what a transaction object looks like for a contract interaction, right? So if you're building something that's Ethereum specific, definitely. But other than that, if you're building something for a different use case, what you'll probably find is, like you said, it's really like a JavaScript application platform, and it doesn't have to be specific to Ethereum. You don't necessarily have to know Solidity or how the Ethereum blockchain works to build a really interesting application. There's other like design spaces within snaps that you can explore. And to the first part, I would say, some of the snaps are already set up like public goods. They're open source. They provide something that's, fully like designed to be, just a platform or a tool for developers to build on top of, or for dApps to implement. Some of them are just like essentially middleware for dApps to do interesting things with MetaMask. It depends on the snap. But like one of our philosophies going into this was like, well, one of the things that we said is, we're not charging for snaps. If we don't intend for, a user to have to pay to install a snap or to gate certain snaps behind like a financial incentive, right? So some of the snaps may have a business model. They may have a, it's free to install and use, but you subscribe to get, more transaction simulations. Or, it's a Bitcoin wallet and it lets you connect to a dApp with and do Bitcoin transactions. Maybe it has a fiat on-ramp or a swaps function or something like that. That's up to the developer. But yes, to your question, some of them are set up like public goods. And last year, we actually launched a grants program. It's metamaskgrants.org. And we actually funded some projects with that intention of like supporting some public goods that don't necessarily have like a business model and don't necessarily have like a financial incentive, but they were just good use cases that we wanted to empower through snaps. And so we supported them with grants.
That's exactly what I was going to ask next. So thank you.
we're reading each other's minds here. Yeah.
Is there a snap for that?
Oh my God. Nice, man. That's great. All right, we have a couple questions from the community. Galata, one question he asked was, are there any plans to allow swapping between MetaMask and the Snap? I don't quite know what you mean. I don't know.
I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for example, to swap from Ethereum to Cosmos or so forth. That is something that we're looking into. It's a little bit complicated. Our swaps right now, are really focused on enabling users to swap between Ethereum and all the different L2s and other Ethereum-based L1s. Some of the snaps do facilitate, like to swap from Ethereum to Cosmos, for example, or to connect to dApps that support that. But yeah, all I can say is it's something we're looking into.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then so I guess the building onto that is, so that was the question that was up, or maybe, I don't know, maybe he's asking the same question in different way, or in the same way twice, but like, okay, so he used Snap for Cosmos Stargaze. One issue he had from a UX perspective is that he's on a new chain, but can't do anything because he doesn't have a gas token for that L1. Any plans for swaps from EVM?
Yeah, so we are, and we are, and some of the Snaps developers are working with various like bridge and like on-ramp providers to make sure that when you have that new account generated by that Snap, that you can then get funds in there. And I know there was another question about integrating with like some like Layer 0 and Thorchain. Yeah, yes. And also, I would recommend for users of Snaps to also reach out to those dApps and let them know that you want to be able to use their dApp with the Snap. There is like an integration process for the dApp developers. We have some documentation for this, but we're actively working with dApps to get them on board with some of these Snaps and make sure that if you're using the Snap, you have access to those dApps as well.
Cool. All right, Galata. Hopefully that answered your question.
Are there any types of criteria you guys are using from like a community, a pulse, or otherwise to kind of like create an incentive for certain snaps in terms of like the grants you're offering, or just in general calls for developers? Hey, we're looking for snaps that provide greater fees, like access to interoperability or notification systems, et cetera.
Yeah, so we're actually, we're doing a hackathon this weekend at ETH Global New York around transaction insights and a new feature, which is name resolution. So snaps that can do like ENS type functionality within MetaMask. And so we often do like hackathons and bounties for, new use cases or, for people to build new snaps with existing use cases. And then we will be announcing some more APIs between now and the end of the year, and putting it out there that people can apply for grants to build snaps for these use cases as well. So that's just something we're going to be doing ongoing as we support the platform and the developers who are building on the platform.
We have a question from user Gogeta972 who asks, what's done in MetaMask Snap security assessments to mitigate supply chain attacks, e.g. the integration of a compromised library?
So one thing is we recommend that Snaps use Lava Moat, which is exactly for this purpose of, preventing supply chain attacks. Also, I think in pretty much every audit report, that it talks about like making sure that the Snaps dependencies are pinned, right? So they're not like getting, like unexpected, library changes and so forth. But this is something that, because all these Snaps are audited, this was reviewed as part of those audits. And our allow list is actually version specific. So it even ensures that like when you're installing that Snap, you're installing a specific version that was vetted as part of the process for that reason.
There you have it.
So if a given Snap had a library upgrade, they would need to kind of redeploy that Snap to MetaMask.
Yeah, and we even use something called a checksum, which checks that if the code has changed. So whatever's on the allow list is not just specific to a version number, but a checksum. So if something changes, that goes through the review process again.
I got you. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. Changing gears slightly, just like I don't know how do you think about the wallet space overall? I don't know how long you've like been in crypto, but like, do you think it's, I don't know. I mean, we talked about a little kind of becoming more kind of identity oriented and not just kind of like wallet, and people can think a bit more broadly about what a wallet even is. I don't know. Like, are you seeing like? Do you think other players are kind of thinking like MetaMask? Like, Uniswap has a wallet, Rainbow has a wallet. I'm not super familiar. Rabby has a wallet. Like, do you think everyone is kind of going on along kind of trying to expand into identity, or like, are people trying to like chip off different user experiences? I'm just curious how you'd like characterize the whole like wallet landscape.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really speak for other wallet creators. I think, from what I see in the ecosystem, different wallets are, approaching different use cases, maybe based on what their existing users, want most. And it's really cool to see like wallets implement different features and approach, different, user journeys of like, okay, maybe an NFT user wants something different from like a DeFi user, for example. One thing I would say is that like part of the idea behind MetaMask Snaps is like, when you have tens of millions of monthly active users every month, MetaMask has very many different types of user profiles, right? There's, we have very casual users who maybe transact once a month. And then we have people who are transacting every day. We have people who are like, Epic NFT users versus Epic DeFi users and so forth. And so to try to build like one interface for all those different broad ranges of users is like pretty much impossible. So the idea behind this is that if you can make something that's less opinionated, and make it something where like you as a user can personalize the wallet with the features that you want by installing those into MetaMask and getting the functionality that you need, then it's not really just one MetaMask anymore, right? Like each person has their own like MetaMask, customized wallet for the use cases that they have in mind.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, like turning it's more into a platform. I mean, closer. I feel like there are a lot of business terms which I don't know, but like, yeah, like more closer to an iPhone, or it's like more of like this customizable
Yeah, and
thing you have.
there
Yeah,
was a meme for a while where people would share their iPhone home screen, and it was funny. It was like fun to see like which applications did you have on that first page, and like what
yeah,
type of someone who travels might have like Expedia and Uber, whereas someone who's like on social media a lot might have like Hootsuite and like YouTube or something, right? And
yeah.
so like I hope at someday we'll get to this point where it's like show me your top 5 snaps, like what are you doing with the wallet, and it kind of says something about you, right? Like it says like what you're doing and what you use MetaMask for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's interesting. Yeah, that's just an interesting kind of development. I feel like there's some like word about like distribution or like vertical integration or something I don't know, but yeah. Cool. That's cool. And man, all from this little extension. I downloaded MetaMask in like 2017, and it's come a long way, I guess.
Yeah,
certainly.
I like to say that like MetaMask revolutionized the ecosystem years ago by making it possible for any dApp to connect to the blockchain. And I feel like this is another like shift, right? Where it's like, okay, now any app can modify MetaMask itself, right? And users can access all kinds of functionality in a totally new way. And so I think that that's really exciting.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to see the app encapsulating a lot of like the tech features that we saw in the Web 2 stack, and now providing them in terms of the Web 3 stack in a way that's kind of like built around safety features, I think. And that's really important because a lot of people want to move fast and break things, but unfortunately when we do that, sometimes we break the piggy bank.
Yeah. It's a little more move slow and don't break anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that. I was talking to someone who is on the security team, and he was like, "Yo, you guys have to code like you're like making, you're coding for like jets or like autonomous vehicles. You can't code like you're, writing in a new web app in JavaScript. Although this is in JavaScript, but maybe a little different.
Even in the realm of JavaScript, there's certain things that we do where it's not like JavaScript anymore. So it's like ways that we limit even what we can do in JavaScript and make sure that we're not being careless, in the way that we implement these things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the logic that JavaScript allows for, I think, is a little bit better in terms of implementing really functional applications, right? And we got like the ability to create a social graph on MetaMask. We've got the ability to create trading tools on MetaMask. We've got the ability to integrate these cross-chain transfers, which can revolutionize the way people are accessing DeFi through a single application. And I think this is really important because a lot of the barriers to getting across chains, to getting users to pick up this stuff and run with it have to do with managing multiple seed phrases and having a lot of those technical aspects of knowledge that you need to fill the gaps of before you get started. Having the functionality all in one browser or extension such as MetaMask, I think it makes it a little bit more accessible in terms of the full stack of the Web3 ecosystem. And we've seen it expand pretty quickly into a large number of layer 1s, layer 2s. So interoperability features such as what MetaMask is implementing here are, very necessary to take the next steps into Web3 for the next iteration of users that are going to pick up and run with this stuff. And as we've said before, many of you guys may not even realize what chain you're on in the future once we get to a standard where it's just like we're automatically using MetaMask snaps to route through the fastest L2s so that we can then get back on chain to where we want to be. And it'll be very seamless, hopefully.
Yeah. I like the idea of like, at some point as a user, you don't have to think about the infrastructure that you're on. Like infrastructure should be like totally out of view and just something that, it just comes naturally that you're interacting with different infrastructure. And it's really just about the application that you're interacting with or the, the action that you're trying to do, and it's just like, these are my funds and I want to do something with these funds. And that's all there is to it.
Where are we at with account abstraction? I remember I feel like I was talking to people about it. I saw it's getting adopted, and if we could even add a definition of account abstraction in there, because I need to like dust it off. And how does that affect things like seed phrases? Because I do think that's still a huge hiccup in terms of the average person. I don't know. Are we gonna? Is everyone just gonna have to internalize that a seed phrase is part of their life? You know, if crypto becomes more adopted, or is that gonna kind of become abstracted through some means?
Yeah. So part of how Ethereum is implementing account abstraction is that your EOA wallet, right? Like your Ethereum address that you're using now in MetaMask can still be used as a signer for a smart contract account, or as, what we call like a party in, a multi-signer situation. And so the EOA in that sense is not going away, right? Like there's still value to having that. But there's that side of things. And then there's the other side of like, because we're making MetaMask modular, you can start to introduce other types of accounts that are not managed by a seed phrase, and that can be very interesting. So, like today, MetaMask does support, you can import a private key, or you can connect a hardware wallet, like a Ledger, Trezor, or Keystone wallet, for example. And so, we are exploring ways to then support other types of accounts. And we've done some presentations like at ETHCC in Paris in this area. And also we have part of our like developer relations team has been doing these account abstraction meetups all around the world. They just did one, I think, in Singapore. And they just did one like with Vitalik, which was really cool. But yeah, it's something that we're actively exploring. And yeah, it's beyond just like what your account is used for. So it's like things like, okay, maybe, my account is backed by a social login or a pass key on a device, right? Like maybe I use my iPhone as one of the ways that I, sign into my Ethereum account, or one of the ways that I like confirm a transaction, right? So you can have like multiple steps for confirming a transaction that makes it much safer. But it also includes things like maybe I have different ways of submitting a transaction. Maybe I can submit a transaction to a, paymaster, service that covers the cost of gas or uses a different token to pay the gas, right? So there's like so many different design spaces, and it's really exciting. I've talked to a lot of developers who are building in this space, and they're building like all kinds of cool things where it's like, I can't really get into the specifics, but it's like you can really see how, oh, this is like, people will be able to come into crypto and use much better user experiences where it's like, way less, technical and way less of just like here's your seed phrase and you have to write it down, and much more convenient. So that's it's something that I'm excited about.
Because the seed phrase is it's just huge. Like I don't want to tell anyone like, okay, now go bury it in your backyard, like I just say sorry, it's Saturday, no one wants to do that.
I don't even know where my shovel is. Also, I don't have a backyard. I have a patio.
I know, man. It selects against people with backyards. It's terrible.
Yeah, I know. I have Fort Knox safe over here.
Right. Yeah, well, that sounds interesting, Chris. I won't say that I understood everything you said, but like, it sounds maybe Jeremy, you grokked more than I did, but yeah, just
when I think about it, like I think about, we're talking about the interface of these, non-seed phrase dependent applications with Web3 addresses, right? And so what I wonder is, how do you manage the interaction stack between those two functions there, right? Like you've got security on the Web3 side where you have these authentication standards, and then you've got these apps that don't necessarily use those. How is the Web3 part integrating with those apps in terms of like the identity side, or just like proving who's who, or managing the transactions, or managing interactions on those applications? What are we doing here?
Yeah, like part of it is, if you're a dApp developer, all you need to worry about is, I just know that there's this user account and I want to suggest a transaction. Like they click a button, they want to, bridge or, swap some tokens or something like that. And so part of what MetaMask does is say, okay, all you have to do is initiate the transaction and MetaMask will handle what happens next, right? And whatever steps need to happen for the user to actually validate the transaction and put it on chain. And so in the realm of account abstraction, it's just taking that and then being able to do other routes with it, right? To say like, okay, if the user needs to go, confirm something on another device, or do a Google login or Facebook login or something like that, or 2 or 3 different MetaMask users need to confirm it because it's like a multi-party wallet account. That's something that can be handled on the MetaMask side. And for the dApp developer, you don't see any difference, right? Like you don't have to change the way your dApp works to be able to support those types of situations. And this is what really makes it so important to have a wallet application that is modular and can be designed for lots of different use cases. Because one of the things that account abstraction does is just completely blow up the realm of like all the different ways that accounts can work and the way that transactions can be confirmed and submitted on chain. And so in order to do that, you need a really flexible system that can be designed to accommodate all of these different things. So something that we said at MetaMask early on is like, we're not going to try to guess what's the ideal account management solution. We want to build a system where different types of account management solutions can be available to users, and users can choose the one that's best for them.
And that makes sense. Like if I'm a heavy DeFi trader and I want to utilize multiple applications that give me an edge in trading with like transaction insights or something like that, I'm going to need a different infrastructure and flexibility in terms of like the app side that connects to MetaMask, because all the things that I'm doing in MetaMask are fundamentally the same. I'm sending a transaction on the blockchain and it's going through and it's going to its destination, or I'm receiving transactions as a result of like signing something through a swap, right? So having that part be managed within MetaMask makes complete sense. Compartmentalizing that within MetaMask rather than having to have that logic transferred into the programming stack of the JavaScript app is a great way for developers to know that, like, hey, all I need to focus on is building the functionality and on the points that once I get plugged like info and data from MetaMask confirming this happened or that happened, and then versus when I want to interact with the user, I want to send a transaction, I can create this certain piece of code which will interface with MetaMask, and MetaMask does the rest. This is what I'm getting from that, and I think that's a great thing for developers.
Yep, that's right.
Cool. We had one super specific question from the chat, which is, I don't know. Again, not to put you on the spot, Chris, if you
It's
don't know,
okay.
but yeah. Okay, so is it possible to import Kepler to MetaMask and claim the Say airdrop to avoid having to install Fin or Leap? These are things I don't know everything. I don't know all those acronyms.
Yeah. So Kepler, I think, is another Cosmos wallet.
Yeah.
And I know some users are trying out some of the Cosmos snaps and then are asking like, okay, can I import accounts from these other Cosmos wallets? If I'm not mistaken, I think those Cosmos snaps don't support that yet. Yeah, so that's all I can really say about that. But they may add that functionality later on.
Yeah. Okay. This person says they dislike Leap as it brings back memories of Luna. So they have psychological baggage. No offense, man.
Yikes.
We all do. Yeah.
I know like Luna's like a sore spot for the industry, but one thing that's interesting is like it was an example of like Cosmos able to handle, like the Cosmos ecosystem able to handle a protocol with a lot of traffic, right? And a lot of load.
Yeah.
So it was like, I know that Luna's the sore spot, but I think that Cosmos, I still have a lot of respect for the Cosmos ecosystem and the fact that you can build really interesting things on Cosmos. And I think like, for anyone who's like, maybe burned out on Cosmos because of Luna, I still think it's worth it, to go and see all the cool things that people are building in Cosmos.
Yeah, I mean, cool. Luna might have been a landslide that fell off the side of the earth, but Cosmos was a highway, right? And like it was a functional highway.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right. I think I hit all the things I was interested in the moment. I'll have to, process some of these things over days and weeks, but I'm set. I'm interested to see where account abstraction goes, and interesting to try out some snaps because I haven't really modified my MetaMask experience in a long time. So
yeah, I'm kind of curious. Are we going to see some kind of fun little games popping up in the UX for MetaMask from a snap, something like that? That might be fun.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's obvious based on my background. I used to be a game designer. Cool. And, one of my, goals for next year is to get some games into Snaps, right? And to design some like new gaming experience within Snaps. So I have some, like on my GitHub, I have some example projects of where I play around with some game functionality, but, with Snaps, there's like two things. One is You can do notifications, which are very valuable for games. So like games can actually implement notifications in a lightweight way. But also because you have storage within a snap, and because you have the ability to do computation, you can actually build games that run completely inside of a snap as well. And it's not like it's not going to be like a Call of Duty type of game. It might be like a pet management or a farming type of game or something like that. But yeah, we're actually doing some fun exercises internally exploring this type of functionality. And I think there will be like a snaps gaming sort of like category eventually sometime next year.
Might be fun to see like a turn-based RPG with customizable loot or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know what kind of game you like. Yeah. I think we're gonna have to try that one.
Maybe like a Square Enix reboot.
Yeah, I think if anyone is listening to this, if any game developers are listening to this, you know what the market demands now.
Right on. I got wind. We forgot to mention our team went to Singapore I think it was this week, or maybe it was last week, and they just put out a video on the experience Singapore 2049. It's the link is in the comments, but check it out. Our video team held it down. I saw a preview, excellent production quality per usual. So I would advise checking that out. Yeah. Anyways, cool, exciting. I want to ask how games. I would think like you would need an app, and then you would also need a snap. Like you're not building a game in a snap, right?
Why not? You can make a game in JavaScript, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
So one of the things that we're eventually going to do is enable snaps to have their own UI within MetaMask as well. Whoa, right now, the UI is just like a snap can interact with a dApp or a transaction flow. But eventually what we're going to do is make it possible for you to go into the MetaMask UI and have like a page where you can, interact with that snap and have some kind of like a mini website, for that snap. And then once we do that, I'm going to build a game that you can just play there, and it'll be like a little pet game or something like that. Just to showcase what you can do with it, because usually if there's some new functionality, I'll build a game with it.
Crazy.
It would be cool to see something like integrate with like a lot of the other features that are available with like some of the other cool games we've seen, like Pokemon Go, geolocation on a map. You know what I mean? Imagine you're taking your MetaMask around on your phone and catching Pokemon. So I'm like, yeah. Metamon.
You and I have to talk more offline.
Yeah,
lots of good ideas for sure.
Yeah. I have at least one a day. One good idea there.
Yeah. All right, we'll take it offline, guys.
All right, thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. See you, Chris.
Catch you next podcast.
All right. Thanks for having me.